All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Let us begin. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors, by thanking our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Shvat. To thank the Elbaum family for dedicating all of the learning, all of the Shiurim and Drushos this month in memory of Jerry Elbaum, Zichron Livracha, Yaakov Couple, Ben Avram Menachem, loving father of Avron, Sean, Judah Elbaum, loving husband of Shirley Elbaum. May his memory be a blessing and remain eternal in our hearts. Truly beautiful. We also thank our additional Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Shvat, Mrs. Bracha Strimber, in loving memory of Avi Strimber, Avram Ben Kalman Eliezer Halevi, Zichron Livracha, on his 9th yahrzeit. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamos will have an Aliyah and the family Zayin Nechama. We thank our Daf Yomi sponsors, Greg and Rachel Levitan, for Refuah Shlema for Binyamin Ben Etel and Yitzchak Meir Ben Razel. We thank David and Roberta Schwartz for dedicating the Daf Yomi shir this morning in memory of David's father, Ephraim Shimon Ben Avram. With many kind thanks to Zevi Daniel, David Flum, Ed Miller, and our unique Daf Yomi family and Klal Yisrael for all the warm love and support this past week. We thank David and Roberta for the beautiful dedication. Hope that the neshama has an aliyah and the family a nechama. And with that, let us begin. We have an incredible daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Nun Dalid 54. We are picking up Emir Hashem on Nun Gimel Amud Beis 53b at the Mishnah. So we have a lot to do in not a lot of time. So the Mishnah says as follows: Makom shenagu lahadlik ner belele Yom Kippurim. So also remember again, continuing with the discussion regarding minhagim. So if in a place where they have a custom to light a candle in the home, or we'll see really it's referring to over here in the home, on the night of Yom Kippur, we go ahead and we light the candle. Makom shinagu shelo lahadlik in madlikin. So we'll say, which is another way of saying essentially, where the minhag makom is to keep the home dark on Yom Kippur, we keep the home dark. Where the minhag makom is to go ahead and light a candle, we go ahead and we light a candle. Again, we'll discuss what exactly is behind this particular minhag. But in all places, we go ahead and we do light candles in shuls, in batei medrash, in dark alleys, and for the benefit of the sick. What exactly is driving this particular minhag regarding whether or not you light candles in your home on Yom Kippur? Says the Gemara Tana, Bein she'amru lahadlik, bein she'amru shelo lahadlik, shnei l'davar echad niskavnu. Both the minhag to kindle and the minhag not to kindle are both driven by the same motivation. Let's take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, Bein shamu lahadlik, osan shnagu lahadlik, v'anogin shal lahadlik, lo niskavnu el davar echad, laharfish atzmo mimishka ve'isha. So we'll say, remember again, one of the prohibitions on Yom Kippur is intimacy, marital relations. So the question, both of these particular opinions, the one who say to light the candles, not to light the candles, are all driven by the same motivation. How could we ensure that couple, a husband and wife, won't engage in marital intimacy? So the Gemara says, "Ha'omrim lahadlik mishum dein adam mishamish mitasala or haner." So we've touched on this theme before. The opinion that says to light the candle indicates because again, it is not considered to be modest to engage in biyah in a room that is lit, in an illuminated room. So if a candle is lit, see, Yisrael said they're referring to over here, really in a bedroom. So if you go ahead and you keep the bedroom lit, if you keep the bedroom illuminated, so people won't engage in intimacy. The other opinion that says don't light a candle indicates if there is light in the bedroom, a man will better see his wife, become aroused by her, and therefore could lead to intimacy. So this minhag is interesting. So the goal is the same. The goal is to ensure that a couple doesn't engage in marital intimacy on the night of Yom Kippur. The shaila is which better allows for the fulfillment or enabling of that particular halacha. Is it to keep the room illuminated or to keep the room dark? That's the machlokes. Amar Rav Yoshua Darash Rava the Amech Kulam Tzadikim Li Olam Yershu Aretz. Rabbi Yoshua darshan in the name of Rava, quoting the pasuk, "Your nation are all tzadikim; they will forever inherit the land." Bein shomer lahadlik, bein shomer shelo lahadlik, shnei lo niskavnu elo davar echad. So we'll say so again. The Gemara just quotes this theme: Amech Kulam Tzadikim. Everyone's righteous. In other words, the machlokis over here in the halacha ultimately is all for the same idea. Everyone's motivated by the same desire to maintain fidelity to the halacha. They just disagree as to the best way to go about it. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Ein mevarchin al ha'ar, ela b'matzei Shabbos, hodel tchilas briyasos. So Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, we only make a bracha on a fire, borei ma'orei ha'eish, on matzei Shabbos, as opposed to any other matzei yom tov or any other time. Why? Why only matzei Shabbos? Ultimately, because fire was created on Matzei Shabbos. Again, we're going to discuss this in more homiletic detail as well, but because fire was created on Matzei Shabbos, therefore halacha l'maaseh make the bracha of borei ma'orei ha'esh, which literally means Hashem creates the embers of the fire, the light of the fire, only on Matzei Shabbos. Amaliyahu Saba, v'itimu Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. There was a particular old man. Some say it was Rabbi Rachana Yashar. So ultimately, again, after Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, so Rabbi Rachana gave him a shkoyach. A shkoyach. So the Gemara says, V'china on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan also said, this is indeed a correct ruling. Ula. So I'll say, so again, this is beginning a conversation regarding number one, when do we make the bracha borei ma'orei ha'ish? So you have an opinion here that it's only Matzei Shabbos because fire was created on Matzei Shabbos. That's number one. And again, well, there. Let's continue with this. So the Gemara says, the Gemara goes right there. The Gemara says, okay, Ula havarachav chamra. Ula was riding on a donkey. So it's an interesting story. Va'azil, and he was traveling. V'havashakil va'azil Rabbi Abba miyamine v'Rabbi Bar Bar Chana mismale, and Rabbi Abba was on Ula's right, and Rabbi Bar Bar Chana was on Ula's left. So Ula Talmid Chacham doesn't travel alone. So he's traveling again on his right, Rabbi Abba, his left, Rabbi Bar Chana. Amali Rabbi Abba li Ula. So Rabbi Abba said to Ula, Vadai da'amrisa mishmei Rabbi Yochanan. Is it true that you said over the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ein mevarchin al ha'ar, ela b'matzei Shabbos, hoil utchilas briyasahu? So that you said over the name of Rabbi Yochanan that you only make a borei ma'orei ha'ish on Matzei Shabbos because fire itself was created on Matzei Shabbos. Hadar Ula chaza bei Rabbi Bar Rachana bishus. So Ula looked at Rabbi Bar Rachana and he was upset. Now what's going on over here? If we take a look at Rashi, Rashi says, it's about 6 lines up from the bottom. Hadar Ula chaza bei Rabbi Bar Rachana bishus. Nistakel bo bepanim zoafos. Ula was upset. Kilomar ata amarte b'shem Rabbi Yochanan v'hula amarkein ela af b'matz yom kippurim mevarchin alav hoil v'davar chadashu shenesar kol yom v'achshav neneimanu. So Ula was upset at Rabbi Rachana because Ula thought Rabbi Rachana said over Ula's ruling in the name of Rabbi Yochanan in the wrong way. That apparently Rabbi Yochanan was quoted as saying you only make a borei ma'orei ha'ish on Matzei Shabbos, but that's not true. You also make borei ma'orei ha'ish on Matzei Yom Kippur. Now, granted, it's for two different reasons. The Gemara is attributing over here the borei ma'orei ha'ish over here by Matzei Shabbos because fire was created on Matzei Shabbos, but on Yom Kippur, ultimately, again, borei ma'orei ha'ish is recited to show, ultimately, again, that fire was prohibited the entire day of Yom Kippur. That even though normally malacha, specifically of ochel nefesh, is permitted on Yom Tiv, Yom Kippur is the exception to this rule. So we make a bracha borei utilizing fire on Matzei Yom Kippur to show that although it was prohibited the entire day, it's permitted now. Amrle, ana lava ha'amri, ela ha'amri. He said, I wasn't reciting, I literally translated, I wasn't talking about this, I was talking about that. The Tani Kamed Rabbi Yochanan, because there was someone who talked before Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer, Yom Kippurim shechalios b'Shabbos, af b'makom she'amru shelo lahadlik madlikin mipnei kavod HaShabbos. So Rabbi said, listen to this. He said, I was quoting this particular ruling of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that even in a place where they have the minhag not to light candles on Yom Kippur, as we just saw in the Mishnah, when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, we do light candles out of Kavod Shabbos. Va'ani Rabbi Yochanan Basrei v'chachamim osrim. And Rabbi Yochanan answered afterwards, and he said, v'chacham, however, answer this. Amalei Ada te Kari Allah. Ada said it pasuk should be said about you. Kari Allah Rabbi Yosef. Sorry, Mayim amukim eitza balev ish. Literally, again, deep waters are the counsel in the heart of man. Top of Nundalad, V'ish Tavuna Yidlena, and a man of understanding will draw them out. My mamukim eitza b'leivish. What does it mean? Deep waters of counsel in the heart of man. Ze'ula. This refers to Ula, who possessed incredible wisdom. V'ish tavuna yidlena, but it takes sometimes a man of understanding to draw out the waters. Ze Rabba Bar Bar Chana. This refers to Rabbi Bar Chana. Ultimately, again, through his conversation, was able to draw out the true shita of Ula. So I just want to point out something very interesting. So first of all, there's a very profound pasuk that here the pasuk, this is in Mishlei, is really highlighting an incredible yesod. That sometimes there are people who possess great wisdom, but they might not even be aware of the wisdom they possess. And sometimes it's about finding a way to draw out of that wisdom. Certainly, again, in the realm of chinuch, in the realm of dealing with our children. So children often have many incredible gifts and many incredible talents that they may not even be aware of. And so it takes an effective parent and it takes an effective mechanech to be able to kind of draw that out. That's the Mai Mamukim Eitza B'Levish. Sometimes it's very deep waters in many people, but sometimes it just takes the Ish Tavuna. It takes the person of understanding to help draw them out. But I will say, but the point over here is you see as follows, we begin to see a little bit of a dramatic evolution of the Shita Rabbi Yochanan. V'ilu kiman savrua, who does he hold like? Ki hada am Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes on Rabbi Yochanan. Mevarchin al ha'ar bein b'matzei Shabbos, bein b'matzei Yom Kippurim. So he holds like this particular opinion, that is, we make a bracha borei ma'orei ha'ish, both on Yom Kippur as well as, I should say, both on Matzei Shabbos as well as Yom Kippur. And I both say, to be very clear, this is for two different reasons. According to the Gemara right now, based on what the Gemara said, is we make a bracha of borei ma'orei ha'ish on Matzei Shabbos because fire was created on Shabbos. Again, we'll dispute that and we'll argue that, but that's what the Gemara is holding right now. On Matzei Yom Kippur, we go ahead and we make a borei ma'orei ha'ish. Why? Because at the end of the day, remember, Yom Kippur is Yom Tiv. It's Yom Tiv. It's called Shabbos, Shabboson, but remember again, it really fits into the Yom Tiv category. So because of that, I would have thought that malacha, at least in some form, is permitted. But it's not. Instead, Yom Kippur is in fact treated like Shabbos. We show that distinction by kindling a fire on Matzei Yom Kippur, ultimately again to show this fire was usher the entire day, even though this is not Shabbos, but now it's permitted. So both say, so I just want to point out, right now the Gemara is saying, yes, we make a borei ma'arish, both Matzei Shabbos and Yom Kippur, but two different reasons. Meisvei, so we'll say that we're going to further develop this, says the Gemara, Ein mevarchin al ha'ar, ela b'matzei Shabbos, hol v'tchilas b'yasahu, v'cheivan shara, mevarchin miyad. This is actually fascinating. So the Brisa says, according to this Brisa, we only make the bracha borei ma'orei ha'ish on Matzei Shabbos. On Matzei Shabbos. Not why? Because fire was created on Matzei Shabbos. But the Brisa say not only that, v'cheivan shara mevarchin miyad. The first fire you see on Matzei Shabbos, you make a bracha on that fire. Both understand what this means. You're walking home from shul. According to the Gemara, you're walking home from shul, and you see someone has a bonfire lit in their front yard. You don't wait to get home to make borei ma'orei ha'ish. You make a borei ma'orei ha'ish on the first fire you see. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Yehuda says, Sudran ala kos. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. We organize the brachas of Havdalah on the cup of wine. So again, you make everything as part of what we'll call formal Havdalah. Borei ma'orei ha'ish, borei minei b'samim, so on and so forth. So we'll say, so again, obviously, we see a contradiction here. So we'll say, so again, this Gemara, this Brisa indicates that fire is only used on Matzei Shabbos, not on Matzei Yom Kippur. So what's going on? Lo kashya, kan ba'ar sheshavas, kan ba'ar hayotzi min ha'itzim u'min ha'avana. Both say a dramatic halacha. On Matzei Shabbos and Matzei Yom Kippur, there are two different fires that are used. Look at Rashi, second line from the top. B'ar sheshavas, shahaya b'shabbos shedalak hayom, mikomako mimeleches avera shavas. Shedalak beheter kegon shel chaya v'shalchola oneradach me'av Yom Kippur. Fine, let's listen to this. The Gemara says there's a fundamental distinction. It is true. We make a bracha borei ma'orei ha'ish, both on Matzei Shabbos, Matzei Yom Kippur. But I will say there are two different fires. On Matzei Yom Kippur, you have to use what's called a ner sheshavas, which means you make Havdalah, or you make borei ma'orei ha'ish on a fire that was lit throughout the entirety of Yom Kippur. I will say that's why on Yom Kippur we light a yahrzeit candle. We light the yahrzeit candle in our homes, even for those Baruch Hashem who do not go ahead and have to observe a yahrzeit. We light a yahrzeit candle. Why? Because on Matzah Yom Kippur, you have to light your Havdalah candle from a fire that has been burning the entire Yom Kippur. That is called a ner sheshavas, a fire that rested. And the reason we do that on Matzah Yom Kippur is because to show, here, this fire was in my home the entire day, and I didn't use it. And I didn't use it because halacha l'maisa, fire was prohibited on Yom Kippur. Versus on Matzah Shabbos, how do you create your fire? You strike a match. You could create fire from you don't need a fire that was in existence. Because again, I both said two different reasons for the fire. Shabbos, Matzah Shabbos, I'm using fire because fire was created. I could create the fire right then and there, and Gamarna, we're good. On Matzah Yom Kippur, the fire is there to highlight the very important halachic point that fire was prohibited over the course of Yom Kippur. So I have to use what's called a ner sheshavas. So both say, just interestingly enough, and by the way, this is all halacha l'maisa. A ner sheshavas, the Mishnah Berurah points out, what happens if you didn't light the yahrzeit candle in your home? I didn't do it. So now what do I do on Matzah Yom Kippur? So Mishnah Berurah says what you do is you light the fire, and then let's say you light the candle, and then you kindle your Havdalah candle from that fire. So meaning you don't go ahead and kindle the Havdalah candle with the match itself, but rather you kindle it from an already pre-existing flame. Again, that's not the ideal. The ideal is ner sheshavas. Tani chada. So we'll say we have one brisa that says that if you create fire, which means literally fire you just created, you can make a bracha borei ma'arei esha. Tani chada in mevarchan alav. But yet another Mishnah said you can't go ahead and make a bracha on it. So we'll say, so which one is it? Lo kasha, again, kam b'matzah Shabbos, kam b'matzah Yom Kippurim. Both say, again, this is halacha l'maisa. Matzah Shabbos, you make Havdalah on fire, you create right then and there. Matzah Yom Kippur, you must use ner sheshavas, a fire that was in existence throughout the entire day. Again, why? As we just mentioned a number of times, because fire is used in two different symbolic capacities on Matzah Shabbos and Matzah Yom Kippur. Rebbe Mefazron, so I will say literally translated, Rebbe would scatter them. But I'll say what that means is that on Matzah Shabbos, when Rebbe would make Havdalah, he wouldn't organize everything together. So when he was walking home from shul, if he saw a fire, he'd make borei ma'orei ha'esh. As soon as he got Pesachim, he would go ahead and make borei minei Pesachim. And then at some point in time, he'd make someone. Then afterwards, he would make Havdalah, he'd make the bracha of Hamavdil ala kos, on a cup of wine. Conversely, Rabbi Chia Mechanson, Rabbi Chia would gather them. He would make all of the brachas of Havdalah, Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, Borei Minei B'Samim, Hamavdil, Hagafen, all together. Am Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Afa Pish Rabbi Mefazron, Chozer V'Sodron ala kos, Kadei Lahotzi Banav B'nei Beiso. So we'll say this is actually quite fascinating. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi said, even though Rebbe would scatter the brachas, in other words, he would recite them as they would come up. As soon as he saw fire, Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, B'Sam, Borei Minei B'Samim, when he got home, he would repeat them all together in order to discharge the obligation of his family members, which actually is a fascinating halachic discussion, which unfortunately we don't have time to go into today, but Emir Hashem we will come back to. So the Gemara goes weiter. So we'll say, so now we're going to do some beautiful and incredible and overwhelmingly amazing agarta. So we'll say, so now remember, we just spoke about this idea that fire was created on Matzah Shabbos. So the Gemara is going to jump on this. Is that true? That fire was created on Matzah Shabbos? Vatanya, we learned, Asara Dvarim Nivru Be'erev Shabbos. The Gemara says that what? There are 10 things. There are 10 things that were created on the Erev Shabbos, Ben Hashmoshos. Rabbi say what this means is 10 things that were mamish created in the twilight moments of Erev Shabbos. So 10 things that were created literally as Friday was ending, Erev Shabbos was ending, and Shabbos was beginning. And what are they? Rabbi said, listen to this list. Eluhain, Be'er, the Be'er. Now, the assumption over here is that the reference is to the Be'er, the well of Miriam. Again, we'll say this, Rashi says over here, Be'er Sham Miriam, Sela sheyatzu mimenu hamayim al yedei Moshe, va'agul kumin kavr hayim miskalgel iman kamak shulcha. We'll say this is incredible. All of us are aware that in the desert, Klal Yisrael had a well. They had a well in the merit of Miriam. So we'll say, Rashi says over here, just understand what that well looked like. The well was a round stone. And it essentially followed Klal Yisrael wherever they went. I saw it rolled with them, right? It rolled along with them. This was the Be'er of Miriam. And water would come from the stone. I've also said the notion of water coming from stones in the desert is quite fascinating. It also gives a little bit of insight into Moshe Rabbeinu's mistake that he made. Again, not for now. But okay, so the Be'er of Miriam was created. V'haman, the man that the Jews ate in the desert. Keshas, ultimately the rainbow. Ksav, the name, Rashi's over here, Ksav is Kriyas Shema Osios. The names of the letters. Michtav, Bose means a stylus, right? Something you use to engrave letters. Now Rashi understands over here that this Michtav ultimately, again, was the stylus of the Ribono Shel Olam that he used for the Luchos. Now, whatever that means. So the Gemara says, V'haluchos, the Luchos themselves, the Kivro Shel Moshe, the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu, U'ma'ara she'amad ba Moshe Eliyahu, and the cave in which Moshe and Eliyahu stood when they saw some piece of the Ribono Shel Olam. Psichas Pia Asan, the opening of the mouth of the donkey by Bilam. Psichas Pia Aretz Levnoas HaRasham, the opening of the earth to swallow up the Rasham, reference to the Korach story. Rabbi Nechemia Omer Mishum Aviv, Rabbi Nechemia said in the name of his father, Af Ha'ar, fire was also created, V'hapered, and the mule was also created. Rabbi Yoshua Mishum Aviv, Af Ha'ayil, even the ram of Avram Avinu that he sacrificed instead of Yitzchak, the Hashamir. The Shamir, I will say, was that very unique worm-like creature that Shlomo Melech used to cut the stones of the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Afat Tzeves. Rabbi Yehuda said even Tzeves, Tzeves are tongues. The first pair of tongues was created, Ben Hashmashas Erev Shabbos. Huaya Omer, Sivsa b'Sivsa Misavda. Because it will say generally, the way you make a pair of tongues is how? With a pair of tongues. Because remember, again, it's hot metal, so you have to handle it with something. So you make a pair of tongues with a pair of tongues. So the Gemara says, V'Sivsa Kamai Samanavde. So who made the first pair of tongues? So the Gemara says, Ha Loi Baria Bidei Shamayim. It must have been created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amrullah said not necessarily. Efsha Yasena B'Dfus V'Ikav Ena. Ultimately, again, they could have made it in a mold. In other words, you could create a mold, pour hot metal into a mold, and make the tongues like that. Ultimately, again, therefore, the first pair of tongues was not created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was created by man. Okay, we'll say, what are we focusing on over here? We're focusing on fire. You just told me fire was created in Motzei Shabbos. Here, the Brisa pretty clearly indicates that when was fire created? Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos, Ben Hashmosh. So we'll say, I just want to point out, we don't have time to go through it now, but first of all, please, like fold down this page of Gemara, because there is treasure. There's treasure here. We'll say, I just want to point out something fascinating. Anything created, Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmosh means, these are the last items that HaKadosh Baruch Hu squeezed in to the creation process right before the close of creation. Now, it is very important to understand what has occurred before HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates these last minute things. The Chet of Adam and Chava. So all of these things created Ben Hashmashas of Erev Shabbos were all things created in the aftermath of the sin of Adam and Chava, which is incredibly important, because what it tells you is that halacha l'maisa, there is some connection between each of these items and the Chet. They were not part of creation before the Chet of Adam and Chava. They only come into this world Bein Hashmashos. Now, maybe they might have been part of creation regardless at a later time, that is possible, but Lamaisa, they're squeezed in right before the window of creation closes. They're squeezed in right before Shabbos. So there is a direct correlation between each of these items and something to do with Adam and Chava. To which the Gemara says Lo Kashya. So again, I will say, which one is it? Was fire created Motzei Shabbos? Was fire created Erev Shabbos? The Gemara says Lo Kashya. Haba or Didan, Haba or the Gehenim. Wow. The Gemara says two different fires. One is our fire that we use in this world. One is the fire of Gehenim. Or Didan b'Motzei Shabbos. Our fire was created on Motzei Shabbos. Or the Gehenim be'erev Shabbos. The fire of Gehenim was created on Erev Shabbos, which I both say now makes sense, because remember, if you understand that all of these items created have a correlation to the Chet of Adam and Chava, so apparently, again, whatever the plan was, maybe there wasn't going to be a Gehenim, I don't know, but after the Chet of Adam and Chava, Gehenna is created right before Shabbos. The Gemara says, really? Var the Gehenna be'erev Shabbos? Is that true that the fire of Gehenna was created on Erev Shabbos? Vatanya, we learned, Shiva Dvarim Nivru Kodem Shnivra Olam. There are 7 things which were created before the world was. Well, see, this is so not a Daf Yomi Gemara. This is like let's spend a month on a Gemara like this. It's just incredible. Shiva Dvar Nivru Kodem Shnivra Olam. There are 7 things which were created before the world was created. These are the 7 things. We both say 7 things which preceded the actual creation of the world in its entirety. The Eluhain. These are the 7 things: Torah, Tshuva, repentance, Gan Eden, Gehenna, Kisei HaKavod, the throne of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Beis HaMikdash, Ushmo Shel Mashiach, and the name of Mashiach. So both say, obviously, each of these, so all these items created even before there's a world, all of these items are created. Now, both say, remember again, we're hyper-focused right now on Gehenna. We're all about Gehenna. Right? So both say, so remember again, here you see Gehenna being created before the world was created. But you just told me that the fire of Gehenna was created on Erev Shabbos. So what's going on? So both say, the Gemara just goes through each of these things. Torah, how do the Torah was created before the world? The Chsiv, Hashem kanani reishes darko. Tshuva, dichsiv beterem harim yuladu, uksiv tashev enish adaka, vatomer shuvu b'nei adam. So we'll say again, all of these psukim just highlighting the fact that these items were created even before the world. Gan Eden dichsiv, vayita Hashem Elokim, gan be'eden mikedem. The Gemara is darshing that mikedem could also be vocalized as mikodem. Earlier on, Gehenim dichsiv, ki aruch me'es mol tifasa, Kisei HaKavod Beis HaMikdash Techsiv Kisei Kavod Marom Merosh Makom Mikdashenu Shmo Shel Mashiach Techsiv Yehi Shmo Liolam Lifnei Shemash Yonin Shmo. So we'll say, so again, I'm probably just going through the Pesukim quickly, but again, we'll get to the punchline. So we'll say, so which one is it? When was Gehenna created? Was Gehenna created on Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashas, or was Gehenna created before the world was created? So Gemara says it's not a contradiction. Amri Chalalahu Dinivra Kodem Shnivra Olam Va'ar Didei Be'erev Shabbos. Well, see, this is actually very interesting. Gemara says the cavity for Gehenna was created ultimately again before the world was created. So the cavity itself, the area of Gehenna was created before the world. Ultimately, again, the fire of Gehenna was created Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashas. So we'll say, so really quite a fascinating distinction. So the Gemara goes weiter. Erev Shabbos. But again, is that true that the fire of Gehenna was created on Erev Shabbos? Vatanya, we learned Rabbi Yossi Omer Or Shebar HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Sheni B'Shabbos Ein Lo Kaviyah Li'Olam. The light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created on the second day is never extinguished. Shene'emar Vayetzu Uru'u B'Pigri Ha'anashim HaPoshim Bi Ki To'alasam Lo Samos Va'asham Lo Sichbeh. Why doesn't the Torah record kitov? The word's kitov, and it was good. After HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creative process on the second day of creation, the Gemara says, Mipnei shenivra bo or shel Gehenna. I will say this is incredible. That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates light, the luminaries, right, the light, on day number 2, ultimately again, there was the fire of Gehenna was created on day number 2 as well. That's why the Gemara says that the Torah does not say kitov on the second day of creation. Even though it doesn't say kitov on the second day, ultimately again, all of creation is included in kitov on the 6th day. Hashem saw all that he did, and it was very good. I will say, by the way, just to kind of align with this, the Medrash says, what does it mean? God saw everything that he made, and it was good. Everything that he made, the Medrash says, Ze Yom HaMisa. This refers to death. Hashem saw that death was good. And again, obviously the Mefarshim discussed this. What do you mean death is good? I will say, death is good. And Gehenna is good. Why? I know it sounds strange. Why? Because I will say, death is good because I know one day I have to give an accounting for my life. And the knowledge that I have to give an accounting for my life hopefully keeps me on the right path. Gehenna is good because the knowledge that there is a Gehenna forces me to make the difficult choices in life because I know I want to wind up in Gan Eden, not in Gehenna. So these things like death and like Gehenna, as overwhelming and as scary as they may be, these are the very things that help us to remain on the straight and narrow path in life. It's incredible yisod. So the Gemara says, Ella, so now we have the fire of Gehenna being made on the second day. So what's going on over here? Ella, chalala kodim shenivra olam, v'or didei b'sheni b'shabis. So let's listen to this. Rather, here's what happened. The cavity of Gehenna was created before the world, like we saw before. The fire of Gehenna was created on the second day of creation. V'ar didan b'machshava ala libaros be'erev Shabbos, v'lo nivra ad matzei Shabbos. And our fire, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in mind, had kavanah, he had decided to create it already on Erev Shabbos, but didn't actually create it until Matzei Shabbos. So we'll say, so this is now the entire fire reconciliation, right? So the cavity of Gehenna before the world was created, the fire of Gehenna on second day of creation, when we saw before the Brisa said the fire was created on Erev Shabbos, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to create fire, but actual fire itself is created on Matzei Shabbos. So we'll say, by the way, what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides to create something and then creates something? We'll say, the Rebbe Shalom modeling for us the right kind of behavior in life. If you want to create great things in this world, it requires forethought. It requires planning. It requires machshava. You see, the Rebbe Shalom is the only being in this world who has the ability to create instantaneous results. But yet, even HaKadosh Baruch Hu plans. Even HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks. Even HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol creates a vision. And then from that, creates something dramatic. An incredible Gemara. The Sanya. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shnei Dvarim Elu Alum Machshav Libaros Be'erev Shabbos. V'lo Nivra Matzei Shabbos. There are two things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided he was going to create, but he didn't actually create them until he decided he was going to create them on Erev Shabbos, but he didn't actually create them until Matzei Shabbos. Matzei Shabbos, Nasan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Deya Ba'adam Arisham Ein Dugma Shel Mala. And on Matzei Shabbos, what happened? On Matzei Shabbos, Hashem gave Adam wisdom, divine wisdom, and Adam created results. What did he do? Vehevi Shnei Avanim, V'tachnan Zubazu. Adam brought together two stones. He rubbed the two stones together, and what happened? V'yatsa mehen ar, and he went ahead and he created fire. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, the Gemara says, where did Adam know to do this from? The Ribbon Shalom gave him the wisdom. Adam took two stones, created a spark, and thereby created the first fire on Matzei Shabbos. Vehevi Shtei Behemos, V'herkiv Zubazu. He also mated two animals together, and ultimately, again, from amongst them, created a mule. So we'll say those are the two creative things that Adam did on Matzei Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Pered b'mei anahaya. That's not true. Ultimately, again, the mule was not created by Adam. The mule was created ultimately in the days of Ana. Shneimar hu Ana asher matzah esayimim b'midbar. Darshe chamuros amru Ana pasul haya leficha chevi psul olam. Ana himself, we're going to see, was a mamzer, not like in a colloquial way, but like in a literal way. Right? So we'll say, so Ana was a mamzer, so because he was a mamzer, right, because he was blemished, he brought in a blemished species. Right? We'll say a mule is considered to be a blemished species. He brought in a blemished species into the world. Shneimar, Eila b'nei Seir achori yiksiv, Eila b'nei Tzivon v'aya v'ana, Ela melamed shabat Tzivon al imo v'holu mimena Ana. Ana was the result of an incestuous union between his mother and his brother. Maybe there are two different guys named Ana. Amarava Amina Milsa the Shavra Malkalo Amra. Rava said, "I'll tell you something that even King Shapur never said." Who's King Shapur? Which was like a title of prominence. Manu Shmuel. Others say he was referring to Rava. Okay, I'll say something that neither Shmuel nor Rava ever said. Amakra, who Ana? Who Ana Demeikara. The pasuk says this is Ana, the same Ana from the beginning. So we'll say, so the Gemara says Adam didn't create the mule. Ana created the mule. What drove Ana to create the mule? Ana himself was the product of an incestuous union, of an inappropriate union. So he created a species that was the mating of two different types of animals as well. Tanra Abanan. So we'll say, so where the Gemara is holding right now, just so we have everything clear. The Gemara is holding right now, cavity of Gehenna was created before the world. Fire of Gehenna, day number 2. Kadosh Baruch Hu had the machshava, the thought. They decided to create fire Erev Shabbos, but didn't actually give Adam the wisdom to create fire until Matzei Shabbos. Matzei Shabbos comes, You think there's nothing to do in Baltimore on Motzei Shabbos? There was nothing to do in Gan Eden Motzei Shabbos either. So what happens? Adam goes in and takes 2 stones and he creates fire Motzei Shabbos. So I'll say that is where the Gemara is holding right now. Tan Rabbanon. Asara Dvar Nivru Be'erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashas. But say now we go back a little bit. There are 10 things that were created Erev Shabbos in the final moments of Friday, final moments of Erev Shabbos. Of Eluim, these are them. So we'll say most of this list is the same. Be'er, the well of Miriam, Man, Keshes, the rainbow, Ksav, the names of the letters, Michtav, the stylus, the Luchos, the tablets for the Asar Sadibros, Kivro Shal Moshe, the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu, Ma'ara Sha'amad Ba Moshe Ve'elio, the cave that Moshe and Eliyahu both stood in when they saw the image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Psichas Pia Asen, Bilam's donkey, or the opening of Bilam's donkey's mouth, Psichas Pia Aretz, the ability for the earth to open up and swallow. People of Lo Asar Hashem, Yish Omrim, you will say, here's where the list grows, Af Maklo Shel Aaron, incredible. Even the staff of Aaron, Shkedeo Pracheha, with its almonds and blossoms. Rabbi say, remember again, this is a reference also to the well, this is a reference to the Korach story. The Korach story, right, where again, there's a rebellion against the authority of Moshe and Aaron, and the way in which Aaron's leadership is solidified is that his staff was the only one that blossomed. That staff, together with its almonds, together with its blossoms, was created already ben hashmashas. But say all of these things also symbolize that there are certain things that were part of the fabric of the world from the beginning. V'yeshomrim af hamazikim, some say also shadim, were created. V'yeshomrim af bigdo amadeis, af bigdo sha'adam harishon. Some say it was also the clothing of Adam Rishon. I both say Rashi records an interesting machlokes over here. Rashi says, what's bigdo sha'adam harishon? So Rashi says, quotes 2 opinions. He says that the clothing of Adam Rishon had an image of every single animal engraved on it, and that garment gave a person dominion over the animal kingdom. But then Rashi says, no, it's simpler. It refers to the clothing in which Adam and Chava clothed themselves after eating from the 8 stas tovara and realizing that they were naked. So again, just 2 different opinions in Rashi. Tan Rabbanon, Shiva Dvar Mechusim Mibnei Adam. I will say this is such, I wish you had like another 40 minutes. I'll say this is such an overwhelmingly profound Gemara. There are 7 things which are Mechusim. Mechusim literally means covered or obscured. There are 7 things that are sometimes out of the realm of comprehension of a person. Eluhin, these are the 7 things. Yom HaMisa, supposed to say on a basic level, I don't know when I'm going to die. Right? The person doesn't know when they're going to die. The Yom HaNachama, we'll say, listen to how profound this is. A person also doesn't know when they are going to achieve consolation. Now Rashi says over here, Yom HaNachama, Shekol Adam Masa Yisnachi Mida'agaso. We'll say an incredible yesod that a person does not know when the day of consolation will come. It could be consolation for loss, but it's also consolation for your worries. Right? We all walk through worries, life through worries. Most say, doesn't a person, don't we sometimes say to ourselves, like, when will I reach that point where my worries will be taken care of, right? When will I ever reach that point where I'll have some level of inner tranquility? Allow me to go on with this for just a moment, right? When will I ever reach a level where just there's a feeling of nachas ruach in life? So a person doesn't know. Person doesn't know when they'll achieve that. Va'omek hadin. Person doesn't know the depth of judgment. So we'll say, so again, Rashi points out over here that either refers to the fact that most judges don't appreciate the full profundity of the authority they are vested with. Others say that what Rashi means over here is the Omek Hadin, the depth of judgment after 120. When we go before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't always appreciate the full depth of judgment by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't know what's in my friend's heart. Right? So I'll say, this is incredible. We never really know what someone else is thinking. Or a person never knows, ultimately, again, how he's going to earn his parnasa. Right? What's going to work, what's not going to work in life. Umalchus beis David masai tachzar, when is Mashiach going to come? Umalchus chayeves masai tichla. And when will the terrible, evil monarchy, Rome, when will Rome finally come to an end? I will say, such an incredibly profound Gemara, that there are certain things in this world that you just don't know. When you're going to have a level of inner tranquility, when you're going to die, but what happens to me after I leave this world, what are my friends and my family and my loved ones really thinking, what deals will work out? Where does my parnasa really going to come from? When is Mashiach going to come? And when are the Risha'im really going to get what is coming to them? Incredible. Tan Rabbana, Gimel Dvarim, Alu b'machshav libaros, v'im lo alu dinu shiyalu. There are three things, Rabbi say, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. Alu b'machshav libaros means he decided to create. And even had he not created it, logic would have required that he would have created it. We'll say, what is this? This is wild. So the Gemara says, number one, ala meis shiasriach, that a dead body decomposes. And Rashi points out over here, because if a dead body wouldn't decompose, what would people do? They would keep their loved ones with them. Right? So you would keep your loved ones with you, but I don't know what you do. I don't know exactly how that works. But maybe in the attic or somewhere else. Right? So you go ahead, why do you have to say goodbye to my loved ones? It's true they're not alive, but if I could see them, I could embrace them. So, but again, the only way for a person to, is incredibly profound yesod. Because what it's saying is the only way for a person to move on after, person has to find an ability to move on after loss. We are not allowed to become rooted in our losses. We mourn our losses, and some losses you mourn for the rest of your life, but there has to be a way, ultimately, again, to plot a path forward. So the dead decompose. And over time, the dead are forgotten. Now what does this mean? Anyone who's ever experienced loss knows you never forget. You never forget someone who you love who has died. What it means is, Rabbi saying that after when a person encounters loss, so loss often occupies an incredible amount of emotional and intellectual real estate in the consciousness. Over time, what ends up happening is a person is able to take that loss and push it a little bit back. Not necessarily all the way into the recesses of the subconscious, but it doesn't have to be the primary thing that's on my mind all of the time. That's what it means that the Mace, Kadosh Baruch Hu programmed us with that ability to push loss back. It takes time, definitely takes time, but I'm able to quote unquote forget, but not literally forget, but rather push into the recesses of the subconscious. Listen to this. Kadosh Baruch Hu also created that wheat rots. They both say, now what's the mile of wheat rotting? Since it rots, you have to sell it. Since you have to sell it, you have to keep prices in a legitimate place. If you could hoard produce, you could drive up demand. And you could drive prices through the roof. The fact that you could only hold on to wheat for so long creates ultimately, again, a normal market price for the purchase of wheat. Now, let's listen to this last one. This is great. So the Ben Yehoyada says, one of the things that Kadosh Baruch Hu did is he caused people to accept paper currency. Listen to what this means. Right? Think about this for just a moment. You go to a store, right? And what do? You're buying something. So you take out a $50 bill, right? And mamash, you buy something, but it's a piece of paper. Okay, I know there's a cheshbon, it's backed by this. It's a piece of paper. Don't you think that the best way to do commerce, ultimately, again, is carry around your gold bars, right? Carry your gold bars and go ahead and pay with this and pay with that. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that we accept paper currency, which is such, because also, think about it, if you didn't do it, it would disrupt the entire flow of commerce. Incredible. So let's do a little bit more. We're right on target. Says the Mishnah, Makom shenagu lasas malacha b'tisha b'av. We'll say, so again, if there's a place, back to minhag hamakom. We're not finished with the agarata. There's still incredible agarata to come. Makom shenagu lasas malacha b'tisha b'av. If you live in a place where the custom is to do malacha on Tisha B'av, osin, you do malacha. But if you live in a place where they don't do malacha on Tisha B'av, you shouldn't do malacha. I will say again, Tamidi Chachamim do not do work on Tisha B'av. They don't do work on Tisha B'av. The Olam says a person should conduct himself like a Talmid Chacham. So Rav Shimon seems to be of the opinion that really a person should not do malacha on Tisha B'av, and ultimately again should be like a Talmid Chacham. Now, the novelty in saying that is, generally we would say that if a person is not a Talmid Chacham, but he conducts himself like a Talmid Chacham, mechsik yehura, that looks arrogant. Rav Shimon says no, in this context it doesn't look arrogant, because at the end of the day we'll see a person is doing it in order to maintain the proper solemnity of the day. So it says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Ein tainis sibur beBavel, el Tisha B'av bilbad. So Shmuel said there is no such thing as a public fast day in Bavel. And I also remember again, the public fast days that they are referring to were public fast days instituted for lack of rain. Bavel never had a rain problem. a rain problem really was only in Eretz Yisrael. So as such, again, a Tainus Sibur, a public fast day for lack of rains, they didn't have in Bavel. They only had in Eretz Yisrael. So She'ein Tainus Sibur Bavel, Ela Tisha B'Av Bilba, the only public fast day, communal fast day, that they had in Bavel, ultimately, again, was on Tisha B'Av. L'meimra d'sover Shmuel tesva ben hashmosha shelo aser. Shabbos say this must mean that what? That Shmuel holds that Tisha B'Av ben hashmosha. So Shabbos say one word, and then we'll have to stop for today. In a tiny sibur, fast day that they declared because of rain, that fast day, we'll see, although it depends which fast day it was, would begin the night before. And not only would it begin the night before, but it would already occur ben hashmosha. So for example, I will say, if you were declaring a Tainus Sibur for rain on Thursday, the fast would begin when? Already again, Wednesday night, but even before nightfall, even before Tzeitzah Kochavim. It would begin ben hashmashos, during the twilight period of Wednesday, because remember, ben hashmashos is Safek Yom, Safek Laila. That's when it will begin. So we'll say, we'll stop over here for today. We're going to start in Mirat Hashem tomorrow morning. A lot of beautiful Agadah. Tomorrow morning, Daf will be again at 5:45. We'll pick up with Tzidkas HaTzadik and Mirat Hashem on Monday. Shkoyach.